Do you want a fruit tree that will fruit just 1 year after planting, tastes like delicious berries, and is incredibly high in vitamin C and antioxidants, making it renowned for cold and flu? Well, then elderberry is the tree, or should I say shrub, for you. It's delicious for jams, jellies, baked goods. You can make elderberry syrup with it. You can also make liqueurs and even use it as a dye, in addition to its draw for the birds, the bees, and the butterflies. There are a few really important critical factors that you need to consider, as well as a few misconceptions. So let's get into it so that you can start harvesting basketfuls of this amazing fruit. Common misconception number one. I have talked to so many folks over the years who are under the incorrect assumption that elderberry only grows up north. That is not true. Elderberry is native 4A all the way down to 10B, which easily puts it into Florida, and it's actually a native plant here. Now, if you go to the big box stores, you might see a European variety or other cultivars. I highly recommend planting the native species, as it's better adapted to the heat and humidity here in Florida. From a 1 to 3 gallon potted elderberry, you can reasonably expect to harvest berries within 1 to 2 years. Elderberry are naturally found in wetland settings or even growing along drainage ditches by the side of the road, which means they prefer full sun, moisture, and a little bit of added fertility or nutrition in the soil. That being said, they can tolerate almost any growing conditions, including part shade. Now, my 2 plants that I have planted, I placed where I had a gigantic compost pile from when we first moved into the house. That nutrition gave these 2 trees an added boost when they first got established and were doing that main growth phase, but it has been over 5 years and I have yet to fertilize or add compost to either of these, and they have produced significant amounts of fruit for me consistently year after year. It's also worth noting that I don't water these. I will occasionally, in the dry springtime months, water my persimmons tree, which is planted between them. They do get a little bit of overspray from that, but I don't actually water these plants. I do, however, have them planted into sheet mulch. Sheet mulch helps to maintain or retain any sort of moisture that is present in the environment and definitely helps these 2 plants from drying out. So to recap, these plants would prefer full sun, moisture, and ideally a little bit of fertility, but can take a wide range of growing conditions. If you're in North Florida, the time to plant these is in spring. If you are in Central or South Florida, you can plant any time throughout the year, but you might find it easier to get them established once the summer rains have started and we are not in that intense heat and dry growing conditions of spring. Critical factor number 1, elderberry will get 10 to 12 feet tall and 5 to 10 feet wide-ish. So not exactly chump change or a small shrub by any measure. So make sure you give it ample space. The other absolutely critical factor that you cannot overlook is the fact that this plant will sucker. They will send out baby plants several feet, if not more, from the parent plant. It's because it has a network of roots underground, similar to turf grass, where it will send out a runner and then shoot up from there. Now, these aren't overly difficult to dig out or remove, but it is important to note and plan for this minor yet consistent maintenance aspect of growing elderberry. Common misconception number 2, that all fruit trees need pruning. That is actually not the case with elderberry. It can do no pruning or very, very minimal pruning, if any. Now, these plants should not be pruned at all unless absolutely necessary for the first 1 to 2 years of life to allow them to get established quickly and fully. If you do choose to prune the elderberry, the time to do so would be while it is in dormancy for North Florida. Although Central and South Florida, this is an evergreen tree. For all locations across the state, February, March timeframe is usually a good time of year to prune not just this fruit tree, but all fruit trees before they really get going for the spring months. If you do choose to prune the elderberry, what you would look for typically is to remove the older canes. They tend to fruit slightly less than the younger ones. Some people will do that. I don't usually bother. If you do want to prune it, what you're going to do is cut it out at soil level or as close to it as possible. One really important note about pruning is that you cannot top these plants. That's where the primary flower production comes from. So if you don't have the space to allow this to achieve its full height and you need to prune it down, you are very dramatically going to change the amount of production from these plants. Common misconception number 3, fruit trees generally fruit once a year. Again, not the case with elderberry. In North Florida, you'll likely start to see them fruit and flower in summer. In Central and South Florida, likely late spring. Now, these will flush and do like a big burst of fruit right around that initial growing time frame, but they will continue producing sporadically throughout the rest of the summer months, especially for South and Central Florida. You'll likely be harvesting elderberry all the way through late fall. Critical factor number 2, just because this is a fruit tree does not mean it is safe to consume this fruit raw. It contains cyanamide, similar to chia or cassava. The green fruit has the highest percentage of that, and it can make you sick if eaten in large quantities. Now, this is perfectly safe to consume. It is used the world over. So as long as there's only a couple of raw berries in your syrup, for example, you will be perfectly fine. Now, how do we use the fruit once it is ripe, when it reaches that dark black, almost purple stage? You'll simply clip the clusters off of the plant, take them inside, and gently rub them off of the stem with your hand into a bowl. From there, I'll typically try to pick out as many little green fruit as I see, and then I'll put it into a sauce pot with just a splash of water to get them going. These are fresh fruit, so you will not need to add a large volume of water like you would if they were dried or dehydrated. I boil them at a low boil for a little while, mushing with a spoon to release those juices, and then I'll either strain or put through a nut milk bag so that I end up with the juice. From there, you can make the famous elderberry syrup as a tonic for colds and flus. You can turn them into jellies or use them for desserts. This year, I think I am going to try an elderberry panna cotta. So many different options to choose from. I primarily use mine to make an immune support syrup. This calls for 1:1 elderberry juice to honey. It sounds like a lot of honey, but it's what acts as the preservative for the syrup and also holds plenty of medicinal properties in its own right. Alternatively, some folks will use brandy instead of honey. You can add in some extras like astragalus root or cinnamon to increase its flavor or medicinal properties as well, but it's totally optional. You will take a spoonful both preventatively and as a quote-unquote treatment whenever someone is sick in the house. You can also add it to yogurt or smoothies, make a soda spritzer with it, or even top pancakes. Most gardeners will use just the berries, but the flowers themselves are also delicious. People will batter and fry them, or they will use them as a tea or even to make elderflower liqueur. Who knew medicine could be so delicious? This elderberry masterclass has likely convinced most home gardeners and homesteaders why this is an amazing fruit tree to include in your landscape for the ease in maintenance and productivity. But if you're looking for other ideas on fast fruiting fruit trees to include in your homestead, make sure to check out this video next and get 7 highlights on some of my favorites.